Alright, in this video, I would like to talk about failure. I woke up today morning, I saw a YouTube comment talking about this one student who's struggling about a math exam where he keeps failing and he feels the pressure to pass the exam, to show to his failure, and basically to prove himself that he is not a failure of himself. And so in this video, I'm going to elaborate and deep dive into the topic of failure, what it actually means and why failure is actually more of a good thing rather than a negative thing, and the misconception of what people think about it nowadays. I want you to understand that failure is nothing more than an emotional response or an emotional metric to your brain. So, failure is basically an input, a specific stimuli that you get to your brain, and it's basically seen as a feedback to know the specific action that you do afterwards. And so, failure, from that basic definition, is not essentially a bad thing, it's actually some form of a feedback. I want you to understand that failure in the philosophy of Stoicism, very often portrayed by Seneca, he talks about the idea of finding discomfort, seeking after failure, finding hardship, and figuring things out that are very complex and voluntarily putting yourself in a position where you constantly seek for failure. And so, why does he talk about this? Is because, based on what I mentioned earlier, failure is nothing more than a metric. And the metric is a signal for you showing that you are pushing your limits. And I want you to understand that, because once you understand that you are literally pushing yourself to your limit, what you are essentially doing is you're building a sense of a mental toughness. You are creating a very emotionally stable framework for yourself. And if you are very emotionally stable, you are essentially mentally very tough. And so, the good thing about being obviously mentally tough is you're able to handle tough situation, complex scenarios. You're able to deal with high pressure and stakes environments much more effectively, and that's something that you want to do. Not only do you feel the ability to handle such situations more effectively, but you're more able to do it more with focus. And so the issue is, because a lot of people, when they are in tough situations or when they are faced with mental hardship, they're unable to focus, and that's a very basic response of your body, because it basically doesn't know how to process the stuff that is going on in your environment. But if you are more comfortable with failing, then you are more able to focus in situations when it's hard. Now, hardship builds resilience and the ability to survive chaos. Now, I've mentioned this in numerous other YouTube videos, but your life is nothing more than your ability to navigate chaos. And so, Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. And so, essentially, your life is nothing more than a balance between control and chaos. And so, what you got to do as a man is you need to realize, okay, well, I live in a universe, or I live in this world where chaos is everywhere. And so, what I got to do is I got to be able to navigate the chaos. And how do you navigate the chaos? You need to assume some type of control. But in order for you to assume that type of control, you need to realize that being comfortable with failing is okay, because you won't be able to face the storm when you're comfortable the whole time. The facing the storm is difficult. So in order for you to face the storm, you need to essentially put yourself in a position where you realize that you are going to fail. You realize that you're going to push yourself to the limit. Only then you are able to face the adversity, the toughness, and the complexity of life. And so, essentially, what that's going to do is you're going to shape your identity, because your identity throughout history has never been shaped by comfort. Every historical figure, every man that you have read in history books or has accomplished something, he did not do it through comfort. He did not do it because it was easy. Quite frankly, the opposite. He did it because it was absolutely difficult. And I promise you, the higher the difficulty, the greater the reward. It's just how the world works, it's just how the universe works. And once you understand that, trust me, you would want to go after failure, and you just want to consistently push yourself in discomfort. Now, what is the next practical steps, right? Once you realize, okay, failure and being uncomfortable is important. Stoicism talks about it, historical figures do it. Now you realize, okay, failure is more or less of a good thing. So what do I do next? Now, some of the practical stuff include a cold shower, right? Waking up early, train when you don't feel like it, talking to a stranger, and do one task you've been avoiding. And trust me, man, this sounds absolutely cliche, but the amount of people, just ask around, the amount of people that are actually not doing this is absurd. So many people, they know about the theory, they know about this, but they don't do it. Why? To be honest, I'm not too sure, but maybe it's because they don't understand that failure is a good thing. And so I want you to take this list. Obviously, there's many other things you can do, but from a very basic level, from a very basic perspective, you can start with these type of principles: cold shower, wake up early, train, right? Go to the gym when you don't feel like it, talk to a stranger, do one task that you've been avoiding, right? If you are in school, for example, now that I'm talking about the specific example, if you are having a difficult math exams, go through the equations that are difficult. It is uncomfortable. Trust me, I hate maths too, but you just gotta do it. You can't avoid it. There is no way you can go around it. In life, there is no shortcuts. The only way is forward, and so you can't beat around the bush. There's no shortcut. You need to go sit down, you need to go through every single equation, you need to go through every single problem one by one, and only once you have solved it, you will naturally feel more confident because you are more comfortable with dealing with such difficult questions. And not only will you pass the exam, but you'll also develop the mental toughness and shaping that identity I mentioned earlier about toughness and ideally living a life where you face hardship and shape that identity of who you become based on these struggles you are. And so that's something that everybody is going after. And failure is not a bad thing like how society describes it or how your friends perhaps talk about it. Failure is essentially a good thing. And if you want to strive for success and achieve mountains and do great stuff in your life, you need to find these things where you push yourself to the limit every day. I hope this helped.